right, welcome to the presentation tonight. We're going to be presenting on the Notice of Exempt Rulemaking, or also referred to as the Draft License Structures and Fees. This has been a process that's been going on for a few months now, so we're gonna take it up from where we're at in the process. It started back in May at the Kingman meeting, where the department presented conceptual license structures and fees to the commission. After getting their input, we went out to the public through the months of May and June to get public input on those different concepts to build a recommendation to the commission, which went to them at the June commission meeting a few weeks ago. At the June commission meeting, they actually approved the draft rules, which are the license structure and fees. They are draft still. We'll go through those here in a little bit. Now we're out for the phase 2 of the public input process. We'll be accepting input on the draft structures and fees up until and through the August commission meeting. We are scheduled for August 3rd to present the final rulemaking to the commission. Any license and fees that are approved will go into effect January 2014. So starting out with what enabled part of this process was the passage of Senate Bill 1223. This was signed into law in May. This allowed the commission to establish the license structure and fees in rule as opposed to going through legislative approval. The commission already had the authority to raise fees and already had the authority to establish premium hunt structures. They did not have the authority to change the license structure or the licenses that are provided. Again, this provides the commission the flexibility to respond to customer demands and market conditions in a more timely fashion as opposed to the lengthy process it took before this. This bill was supported by several sportsmen and wildlife conservation organizations. During the legislative session, there were several checks and balances that were added to this bill. First and foremost, this is always there. The legislature does have authority over approving our budget and oversight. The legislation actually also added in an annual reporting requirement to the legislature, where we will report to the legislature each year changes that were made either to the structure or fees under this new authority. This authority does sunset in 2019. So after 2019, for the commission to maintain this authority will require another legislative bill. There's also a financial audit tied to this, which will have to be done by January 1st, 2015. And the last part was a cap in the Game and Fish Fund that it can't exceed 50% of the fiscal year 13 appropriation. A little bit of background. I already talked about prior to SB 1223 that the commission did not have the authority to change the license structure, and they did have the authority to raise fees. Fees have not been raised since 2007. The commission had made a commitment at that point not to raise for 5 years. And on the timeline we're going now, fees will not have been raised for 7 years. Any new license structures and fees that are implemented won't go into effect until January 1st of 2014. The new structures and fees will be based on a few things, specifically value to the customer, customer input and feedback, which is what we're doing here now, and also ultimately it's the commission's decision. Our guidance when we were developing the conceptual license structures and fees, there were several, but here's a few of them. Obviously, we looked to the point that the commission already had prior statutory caps and authority to establish premium structures. We wanted to remove barriers for recruitment of new hunters and anglers, specifically by simplifying the license structure, bundling privileges, and reducing costs for youth. We also, at the same time, have to maintain our revenue and our services. We do not receive any general funds. Our agency operates through the revenues it generates through a variety of sources, but one of the major ones is the license fees and stamps that hunters and anglers purchase. We also took into account that hunters and anglers are a major supporter of wildlife conservation through their license and tag fees, as well as the excise taxes they pay on their equipment, whether it be hunting, shooting, or fishing equipment. In some cases, we looked at some Western state comparisons when we were looking at those different concepts. We spoke of budget challenges. Obviously, since 2006, the cost of doing business has went up. Some specific examples of this are our helicopter surveys have went up 43%, fuels went up 40%. Fish prices for our urban program, which utilizes farm-raised fish from private aquaculture facilities, have went up 44% for catfish, 13% for trout, And our own hatchery productions for specifically our trout production has went up 13%. We've also had mandated mandated employee benefit costs increase since 2006. A couple examples: insurance has went up 69%. Retirement, this is on the law enforcement side, or the public safety side, has went up 92%. At the same time, we've had a flat revenue stream, which can be seen here with the olive line. Back in 2008 was the peak, and now you can see where we're at 2013. We're about $5.5 million below where we were in 2008. But it's been flat after the 2008 to 9 drop there. It's not continuing to drop, which is something to point out. During this process and continuing on this process, there's been several ways for the public to comment or provide input. The public meetings, we conducted over 18 of them in the phase 1 of this. We also had comment cards at those meetings, or the flip charts here at this meeting. There's a dedicated website that also has a dedicated email address where people can provide any comment or ask any question. And then obviously the commission meetings, where the commission are hearing these presentations and either providing direction or making a decision. The next commission meeting, it will be the August 2nd. It's actually 2nd and 3rd. That slide is incorrect. It's the August 2nd and 3rd commission meeting. This item will be on the August 3rd agenda as it stands now. At the same time as the public meetings were being conducted, we also conducted a survey, scientific random survey of hunting and fishing license holders in Arizona. Sent out 6,000 of those surveys. We actually received more than 1,500 responses to date, so the 1,488 was as of a week and a half ago. And we did receive a lot of comments through this process. The public meeting attendees, we had over 200 show up at the first previous to the June commission meeting. They provided 658 comments. We also had 229 emails we received in that time frame, and we've received more since then, and we'll be looking at those in the second phase of public input, who provided over 800 comments. I would point out at this point, I forgot at the beginning, if there's any viewers in the regions, that they can email or they can ask questions there, and that'll get to us and we'll respond to them. Those viewing at home, obviously we can't answer your questions because we can't contact you, but if you go to that dedicated email address here, you can provide any comments, questions, or suggestions you might have. So in general, the public input we received on the license structure, this is not the tag fees, just the license structures, there were general support for the simplification of the license structure. There was general support for bundling and combining the privileges, which is most represented in the fishing license. General support for the youth fee reductions and the youth combo. There's also general support for the 365-day license concept. Date of purchase, your license is good for 365 days. There was some opposition or comments of that over paying for unwanted privileges, and we'll talk a little more about those in a bit. There was also some concern that the license structure, while it had been simplified, that the conceptual tag structure had actually not been simplified, been complicated. Specifically talking about the premium concepts. And there was general recognition from the public that the department needs to maintain its funding to operate. So getting into the specific licenses, we'll go through each one of these that have been approved by the commission as the draft license structure. This starting with the resident general fishing license. The first part I'll talk about in each of these is the summarized public input we had, and then what the commission approved as a draft. So in summary, again, there was support for the 365-day license, about 2 to 1, and this was from the survey. Our customers also liked the added value, including all the stamp privileges and the community fishing into the license. About 3 to 1 in the support for 365. About 3 to 1 in the survey liked the bundling as well. Again, in some of the comments we received, there was some opposition about paying for unwanted privileges. And I got a few of them in the public meetings, but most of them were through the email comments, and a lot of them revolved around the community fishing. Some perception that the general fishing license will be subsidizing the community fishing license. In the public meetings, we could explain that the community fishing license, which used to be called the urban fishing license, it still is today, but we're hoping to change that by 2014. Those licenses do cover the cost of that program, in addition to the fees that the municipalities pay to be enrolled in that program. So it really isn't one of those. It isn't the situation where a general fishing license would be covering the cost of that program. The cost of that license would be covering the program. We'll get to that one in a bit. Our survey indicated minimal buyer resistance at the conceptual price. So what the commission did approve was a fishing license that would be valid for taking all aquatic wildlife. This would include trout. This would include the commission-designated community waters, formerly known as urban or currently known as urban waters. You'd be allowed to fish with 2 poles with that license. Reciprocal use on the Colorado River. There's an asterisk there, and I'll explain that in a couple slides here. But there is the Colorado River stamp, specifically the Nevada and California stamps that the draft has them included in the cost of the license. The license would be good for 1 year from the date of purchase, and the draft fee the commission proposed was $37. Moving to the non-resident general fishing license, again, we had general support for the fee. There was some perception from the public that this was a lowering of the fee for the non-residents. Arizona does not sell a lot of non-resident fishing license. The 2 that we do sell a significant number of, about 15,000 combined, would be the 5-day non-resident fishing license and the 4-month non-resident fishing license, and those are $32 to $39 relative, or about $32 to $39. The general fishing license was actually one of those products that was a bad product because there was a better license being sold that, because the commission couldn't change the license structure, we had to still be provided. General fishing license was $70. Sold very few of those because somebody could buy a non-resident superfish for $63, which included the license, the trout stamp, and the urban. So in essence, it really isn't a lowering of those fees because there was very few of those sold. I think 1,800 combined. So what the commission approved for a non-resident general fishing license would be one that's valid for taking of all aquatic wildlife, including trout, including the community-designated waters. Allows 2 poles. Use of 2 poles. Reciprocal use on the Colorado River, and again expiring 1 year from the date of purchase for a fee of $55. Speaking of the Colorado River and Lake Powell stamps, the reason there's an asterisk beside those is we have agreements with both of those states on the reciprocal use of those waters. If you have an Arizona license, you have to have a stamp that validates so you can fish across throughout the lake, which is essentially a $3 stamp from California, same way back to the other way. And the Nevada stamp is also $3. We are working with both of those states on amending those agreements, so those stamps will no longer be required. We're optimistic we can make that happen this year before 2014, but we cannot guarantee that because, again, it's dealing with agreements with partner states. And then with Lake Powell, where it's a little bit different situation, where the border doesn't cut down through the middle of the lake, it just cuts down through the bottom section. About a mile of Lake Powell is in Arizona. What we proposed and the commission approved was the Utah residents with a Utah resident license will be able to fish the lower portion without a stamp. It's a very small area, very few of those sold, and the cost to implement that is probably negligible to the cost of not having that stamp. For the community fishing license, again, currently known as the urban fishing license, we did get some concern about subsidizing the urban program. I spoke to that a little bit ago, and I think I explained that that program does cover its own costs. Some felt that the urban price was too high at the conceptual fee amount. Those were a few comments we received. Our survey indicated minor buyer resistance between $20 and $22, and essentially no buyer resistance between $22 and $24. The current fee is $18.50. The 2-pole stamp is $6, about 50% by that. So half of the anglers are already at $24.50 based on that. Another thing the survey showed us that it was a bit surprising that 68% of the people who bought an urban license that completed that survey indicated they would potentially migrate to the general fishing license because of all the different privileges, the added privileges that it contained. So with that, the commission approved a community fishing license that would be valid for taking all aquatic wildlife from commission-designated community waters, up to 2 poles allowed, and be good for 1 year of date of purchase at a draft fee of $24. Moving on to the hunting. Hunting licenses were a lot cleaner in terms of the different stamp privileges associated with them. There is a couple stamps, and we'll talk about them here in a bit. But on the resident hunting license, we did have support for a 365-day license. There was general support for the conceptual fee. Survey indicated minor buyer resistance at $37. We did get a few comments on the lack of adding extra privileges to that license, and again, I'll talk about that here in a bit when we talk about stamps. There was some concern over the draw issues. At the public meetings, we were able to explain this, but One of the questions was, the predominant question for people who had this concern was, how is a 365-day license going to work with the draw, where you have to have a valid license to apply for the draw and a valid license to hunt big game if you are drawn. And essentially it's the same thing. You would still have to have a valid license to do those. In this case, it could potentially be 2 different licenses though. So with that, the commission approved a draft hunting license that would be valid for taking of small game and big game, with obviously applicable tags required. Good for 365 days from date of purchase at a at a draft fee of $37. Moving on to our combination licenses, we're going to start with the non-resident combo here, because it's got a few more changes. There was support for the conceptual fee of the non-resident license, which was the $160. Support for adding the privileges of making the non-resident hunting license actually a non-resident combo license. Right now we have a non-resident hunt, we have a non-resident combo. Sell very, very few of the non-resident combos, less than 500. And the thought was making non-resident hunt license add the combo privilege. In that a lot of the people that buy this license are buying it to put in for the draw. A lot of them are not successful. If they are, they could come here and fish, but more to the point, if they're not and they still come to Arizona to visit, they have a license they could use by going fishing with it. Survey indicated minimal buyer resistance for non-resident hunting license. We didn't actually ask that, or didn't ask about the non-resident combo in the survey, so there was minimal resistance for the non-resident hunt, and that doesn't include the added privilege of fishing. And again, there was a little bit of a perception there of decreasing the non-resident combo fee. What this represents is a increase on the non-resident hunt fee. The non-resident combo fee actually decreased, but again, so few were sold, it's actually just looking at making a non-resident combo and raising that fee a bit. So with that, the commission approved a draft non-resident combo license that would be valid for taking a small game and big game with applicable tags required. The same privileges for fishing that the general non-resident fish has, valid for taking of all aquatic wildlife, trout, community waters, 2-pole stamp, Colorado Review stamps, and also good for 365 days from purchase at a draft fee of $160. The resident combo, our resident combo currently is $54. We had a lot of support for the fee and the value added. Appreciate it. There was a lot of appreciation for the added privileges, which would be the 2-pole stamp, the community fishing, and the Colorado River stamps. Again, assuming we can get those agreements done this year. Survey indicated no buyer resistance at $57. We did get comments from some people in the public saying just raise it to $60. There's really no difference between $60 and $57. There was a little bit of buyer resistance there, but we ended up sticking with what the conceptual was. Again, we also heard the same concern over the draw issues that we did on the hunting license, and for the people that attended those meetings, we could explain that. It might just be 2 different licenses now. What the commission approved for the draft was similar to the non-resident combo, all the same privileges, so I won't read them all again, but at a draft fee of $57, which is $3 more than the current fee. Our youth licenses, probably some of the bigger changes occurred here. We had overwhelming support from the public on the simplification of the definitions. We had 13 definitions of youth prior to this Senate 1223 passing. Very confusing for families to deal with. There was broad support for the conceptual fee. Some of the varied comments we got, these were few, but they were varied, that the fee was too low, it should be at $10. There was concern over the fact that right now 10 to 13-year-olds are not required to have a license to hunt small game or fish, and under this concept they would have to have that. We had some suggest, again, few suggest that we should lower the age to 16 that are allowed to get that license. Some suggested increase it to 21. So we're kind of got both sides of that one. A few comments about gaming the bonus point system in terms of having several youth put in on applications. And a lot of the comments we heard back from other people in the public is that can happen now. So I'm not sure. I think it only came up a few times. And then 1 or 2 comments about the non-resident youth paying less than a resident adult under this system. What the commission approved for the draft privilege and fee was a youth combo license that would be required to hunt or fish from the ages of 10 to 17. It would be the only license that would be available for youth that age. That'd be valid for taking small game, big game with applicable tags. valid for all the aquatic, taking all aquatic wildlife, including community waters, including trout, 2-pole stamp, and good for 365 days a year, and the California stamps for a draft fee of $5. Talking about our short-term licenses, we had a variety, or a varied number of short-term licenses, most of them for non-residents, which are currently available. And trying to figure out a way to simplify some of that was an interesting challenge. What we provided as a concept for the public to look at was this idea of one-day non-resident resident combos. And we heard some concern that the fees are too high for the resident and non-resident who are just fishing, and the conceptual fees were $16 and $20. Actually, in the resident fee, that's actually cheaper than what the current resident one-day fishing license is. It's $16.25 currently, and it's $17.25 for non-residents. We had varied suggestions on what the term of the license should be, whether it should be 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Which kind of speaks to having just the one-day combo that anybody can buy as many as they want. Consecutive or non-consecutive might still be the way to go. We did hear a few concerns in our some of the meetings about losing the 3-day non-resident hunt, but when people realized that people can still buy it three of these consecutive days for essentially the same price that the current one is, I think that alleviated that. So what the commission approved on the draft privileges and fees was a one-day combo that was valid for taking of small game, would not be valid for big game or putting it for the big game draw. Valid for taking small game and all aquatic wildlife, including the trout, the community waters, and the 2-pole stamp. Be valid for 1 day. Again, you could buy as many as you want, consecutive or non-consecutive. The resident draft fee would be $15, and the non-resident draft fee would be $20. And we're almost done with the license part here, but the only stamp that under this draft proposal that would still be maintained would be the migratory bird stamp, or what many people have probably referred to as the HIP stamp. The public comment on this was that it was a great value for $5. The current HIP stamp is $4.50. The current state waterfowl stamp, I believe, is $8.75. And you'd have to have, if you're going to hunt waterfowl, you have to have the state waterfowl stamp in addition to the federal duck stamp. And anybody hunting doves or migratory birds would have to have the HIP stamp. So what the concept was combining those two into the same privilege at a conceptual fee of $5. We got pretty positive public comments on that. One of the questions was, can you roll that into the cost of the license, similar to the fishing? The reason we can't do that with the HIP stamp is those hunters have to be identified that are hunting migratory birds for the survey and the data requirements from the Fish and Wildlife Service to set migratory bird harvest rates and season lengths and all that. And if you just apply it to every license, then your sample size gets diluted with the number of people who have never intended to hunt. So there's that's the reason behind not being able to combine that one in there now. So what the commission approved was a migratory bird stamp that would be valid for taking of migratory birds, including waterfowl. This would not be required for the youth combo license, and I probably forgot to mention that on the youth license, that it would not. They would have that privilege with that $5 combo license to hunt migratory birds. The one caveat with this one is it will be valid from July 1st to June 30th, and this is due to the sampling time frame requirements, again, with trying to survey the migratory bird hunters. And then the fee that the commission approved as a draft was $5. Again, the federal duck stamp is still in existence and will still be required. The state does not have any control over that, and that's required for anybody hunting waterfowl 16 and over. So, moving to special licenses, we're not proposing any changes or recommending any changes to the variety of other special licenses that the commission now has authority to change or modify. These include, but are not limited to, there's a whole list of them, but it's the Pioneer, the Honorary Boy Scout, Girl Scout. The one change we'll make with that is that's a $5 combo license that's provided to anybody who's attained Eagle Scout or Gold Scout with the Girl Scouts level up to the age of 21. Since now, under the draft, there would be a combo license for $5 available. I think we wrote it into the draft rule, that for those who have achieved that level in the scouting programs would still be able to get a $5 license from 18 to 21. Again, a few examples. The others, the guide license, falconry, trapping. Again, no changes are recommended to that. Lifetime licenses, however, the Commission did adopt or did approve a draft of maintaining our lifetime licenses. Some of the previous license holders will probably have some privileges grandfathered in due to the lack of stamps or the discontinuing of stamps. Benefactor license, for those who don't know what that is, a benefactor license is essentially a donation. It's the difference between the cost of a lifetime license to $1,000 currently. And if someone paid that, they've got a benefactor license. Had no extra privileges tied to it whatsoever. It was just that extra money was considered a donation and put into an endowment fund, I believe. So what the Commission approved was increasing that from $1,000 to $1,500. Again, strictly a voluntary donation for people who get that. The current formula for determining a lifetime license is listed here. I won't go through all these. The proposed formula that the Commission approved in the draft rulemaking is essentially the same, except instead of using the statutory cap dollar amount of the license, we'll be using the current license amount. And you'll see the asterisk by the two younger age groups. That's because of the $5 youth combo. The lifetime license for those folks will be determined based on the adult license price, not the youth license price. And here's just a formula basically looking at the changes of what it is now, what it would be. Hunting is up just a little bit because of the different cost between the current fee and what the approved draft fee is, excuse me. Fishing a little more simply because of all the added privileges with the trout, the two-pole, and all those things that have been added into that license. And the combo lifetime license would actually go down under this because the proposed fee is actually less than the current fee, or excuse me, this fee in statutory in cap. So, in summary, here's what our basic license structure would look like under the draft rules. We would essentially have these. I think it's 9 options for licenses and 1 option for stamp, and the prices associated with them. There is a handout posted on the website that includes all this information, plus includes what the privileges in the draft rulemaking are listed as. So moving on to the tag fees. Some considerations with this is, again, the Commission and the Department looked at the prior statutory caps that were in place before the passage of Senate Bill 1223. We also considered the fact that the Commission had prior statutory authority to raise these fees since 2007 and had not raised them, and also the fact the Commission had the prior statutory authority to establish a premium structure. So public input in general, this is not, these are comments we received not related to deer and elk. We'll go through those specifically. But for other species, the other topics generally took precedent. We did not hear a lot of comments about non-deer and elk. The premium structures and fees were the #1 comment we got. About 34% of the comments we received were related to the premium structures and fees. We also got a lot of comment on the app fee and the license structure. One of the comments we received in general was a thought of lowering the non-resident mountain lion tag. Some of these were specific to certain areas of the state, some were statewide. We got varied comments on the conceptual fees about them being reasonable, about you need to charge non-residents more, or some or all of these tag fees are too high. What the Commission approved is listed here for the draft tag fees. I will not read through all of this. We'll leave it on the screen. Again, it is on the website. You can go to it and look at these. The first column obviously is the tag type with resident, non-resident, and also youth included in there. The current fee is listed. The old cap, again, that was the old statutory cap, is listed there, and what the proposed fee is listed there as well. In addition, we also put in the resident to non-resident ratio, just to show you what the different ratio is between residents and non-residents on these different fees. I'll leave that for a second. Again, if you're watching online at home, or you can go to the website and look at this, or print it out. It's an easier way to look at it. Moving on to buffalo, the Commission approved draft tag fees for buffalo essentially are not much of a change from what they currently are. Essentially what we tried to do was make these even numbers, so hopefully they're easier to understand, easier to get, and people wouldn't make mistakes if they're writing a check on a paper application. So essentially they're what they were. They changed a few dollars to make them more rounded, even number. Moving to our deer tag structure. The commission asked us to look at a couple different things with deer. They asked us to look at a general structure and also a premium structure. We got a lot of comments here. Most of the comments focused on the premium structure. There was strong opposition to going to a premium structure. Some of the most predominant comments we got were the perceived conflict with the principles of the North American model, creating a rich man versus poor man type hunting environment. Conflicts with simplification. Again, I mentioned that earlier about we were simplifying the license structure, but this actually made it more complex with the tag structure. We got comments, to just spread out the cost amongst all deer tags. And in general, no real agreement on what a premium concept or a premium really was. It was really apparent that everybody kind of had their own idea if a premium structure was established, what it would look like, and there was real no agreement on what that would be. We did get varied comments on the resident general structure. Again, this was similar to what we heard in Elk and some of the other tag fees, that tag fee is too high, the tag fee is reasonable. A few said the tag fee should be raised based on the conceptual fees, and that a few also said that non-residents should pay more. We had general support to include the Unit 12A stamp with the Unit 12A deer tag. That was one of the things we talked about in the conceptual phase of this. Looking at the survey, it reiterates what we heard in the public comments with strong opposition to a premium structure for deer. If you can't read that at home, that's about 80% residents that preferred no premium, a little under 60 of the non-residents. So with that public input in mind, the department did not recommend and the commission did not approve a premium structure for deer. They only approved a general structure. And also at the June commission meeting during deliberations on the floor, they proposed eliminating the Unit 12A KIVAB stamp requirement for that specific unit. I'll talk a little more about that when we get to the application fee side of this. So what the draft approved fees for deer would be is $45 for residents and $300 for non-residents. Youth staying the same at $25. I forgot to point out on the other slide that all the youth tag fees have not changed in the draft rule from what they were currently. Moving on to elk, the commission asked us to look at 3 different options with elk when we went out to in the phase 1 of the public outreach part of this. General structure, antlerless versus bull structure, and a premium structure. Again, the public comment we got on that, we got a lot, and there was strong opposition to a premium structure. Heard the same things we heard with elk that we heard with deer in terms of the general comments about why people didn't like that. On the bull versus cow, it was split a little bit. The public comments we got, we didn't get a lot on it, but the ones we did, it was like 11 thought it should remain the way it is now, 5 could separate them out. But we also got the comment that would conflict with simplification, especially if you were applying for first choice bull, second choice bull, and then third choice cow. Might be more complexity added to that. On the general structure, we got general varied comments, again similar to what we heard with deer, with one little difference. But again, non-residents should pay more. There was opposition to the conceptual fee that was thrown out there for non-resident cow tags. A concept that was presented was dropping that fee down to $350 in light of the fact of the 1,100, an average of the 1,100 elk tags we issue each year to non-residents. Over 900 of those were for bull tags. Again, strong opposition to that from from the public. We also heard the resident fee is too high, and we also heard the resident fee is reasonable for the general structure. Survey results. Like we heard with deer, there was strong preference to not go to a premium structure, with about 70% preferring no premium. And you can see what the non-residents said there too. Looking at the bull versus cow, again, it was kind of even. It was about the same number that disagreed with that being a good idea as the same number that agreed with it being a good idea, and then a few there in the middle. So there's really no consensus on whether or not shifting to a bull versus antlerless structure was a good thing or a good idea. So with that input in mind, the department again did not recommend a premium structure for elk or a bull versus antlerless. The commission did not approve or establish a premium or bull versus antlerless structure. I did approve the draft general structure you see before you now. And they also did not approve again, the concept of reducing the cow price for non-residents. So the proposed fee for residents would be $135 for elk. That would be any elk. And the proposed fee for non-residents will be $650 for any elk. And again, youth remains what it is now at $50. So I think that gets us almost to the end here. Application fee. We received a lot of comments about the application fee, and also had a lot of discussion about the application fee at the June commission meeting. The survey and comments we got indicated support of an application fee at $10. We got varied comments with this too. One was that it should only cover the cost of the draw. What does it cost? What does it cover? Should there be a difference between paper and electronic app fees, or should they be the same? And most of the comments we got is they should be the same. Then you should consider, or we should consider, charging different prices for residents and non-residents. After a lot of debate with the commission on the floor at the June meeting, what they approved as a draft is a resident application fee at $13. $3 of that of which would be dedicated to habitat improvement projects and public access projects, and a non-resident application fee of $15, $5 of which would be dedicated to habitat improvement and public access projects. And these were on-the-ground projects. So with that, with the draft fees that were just presented, a common question we get is, what would that mean revenues-wise? And revenue projections, again, this is based on a lot of assumptions. It's based on percentage of buyer resistance. It's based on certain numbers of people migrating to new licenses as opposed to the current license they're buying. So there's some risk with this analysis, obviously. But our projections are that would be about $3.8 million in additional revenue, which again does not get us back to where we were in 2008, and we knew it would not. That was something that was apparent as we were going through this process. That represents about a 13% increase, and of that $3.8 million, based on the application fee slide and what the commission approved as a draft, probably somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million that would be dedicated to the on-the-ground habitat projects and access projects. Again, I have to repeat, these are projections based on a lot of assumptions. So, with that in mind, the commission also had discussed about future items to consider with our customer relations and our different products. These are just ideas. That's all they are right now. They started at the May commission meeting. They've kind of grown throughout when we've done the public outreach so far. One was the idea of a frequent hunter discount. If you put in for multiple genus or multiple species, you might get a discount on your application fee. Again, none of these have been direction approved, anything. They're just ideas at this point. Another idea was hunt draw insurance. So if, in the case of somebody had been drawn for a tag, but due to whatever unforeseen reasons couldn't make their hunt, whether it's a hardship or something like that, that they could possibly turn in their tag and retain their bonus points. Again, at this point, they're just ideas. The tag surrender kind of followed that idea as well, on what could be done with different tag surrender options. Senate Bill 1223 does give the commission to temporary reduce fees or provide discounts. So we've been talking, or we've had people suggest ideas for that, and some ideas that have come up. If there's leftover javelina tags after the draw, that maybe they can provide a discount on those, or again, in response to environmental events such as fire or something, if the commission wanted to provide a discount to a fishing license to get people out in the forest after everything's settled down. Those are the types of ideas that have been thrown out there. Another idea is a come home to hunt idea for people who still have families in Arizona but moved away but want to come back and hunt for cow elk. If they put in for on the same application as their residents, and they've taken a hunter education course in Arizona. Again, these are just the ideas that came up. There's been no work done on these at all. That maybe they could get a discount for that tag. I think Montana has a similar program, so we're getting a lot of ideas from different places. The next one was the scratcher license, which I think came from what happens on the forest with the access passes on the forest, where you actually get somebody could buy these one-day licenses that when the person wants to use them, they can scratch off, and that's the day they're good. Again, just ideas at this point. And there'll probably be others. So moving on to, or closing up here, just to repeat the process we're going through. Again, we started with the concepts in May. We went through the first round of public input, which helped develop the recommendations and ultimately the approved draft rules that we just ran through. That was done in June. Now we'll be using the rest of this month in July to gather public input on the draft exempt rules, and we'll be going to the commission in August, and again, scheduled to be August 3rd with a final rule package. And if that's approved, or what is approved in August, the new license structure and fees will be implemented on January 1st of 2014. So we have nobody here in the quail room. If there's anybody in the regions that has questions, we're not getting any from that. So to remind all the people who are viewing, if you do have, if you want more information, obviously go to our web page, which is listed here. It's the bottom link. Has all the information we've talked about, including a complete list of the draft proposed fees, as well as the draft notice of exempt rulemaking, which is the rule language which contains all the details. And if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, the dedicated email address is there for you. And if you send them to us, we will consider every one of them. I should have pointed out on the first phase, I told you how many numbers we had. It actually equaled 115 pages when you cut and pasted them all together. So it was a very robust sample of comments we got. We went through every single one of them, considered all of them. So with that, we have no questions. I think we will end the presentation, and I thank you for your time.